What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your weekend review for June 8th, 2020. You can see it on my face. I'm pretty exhausted. My work shifts are insane right now. I think this is my 8th or 9th day in a row, and I'm not holding up very well. So excuse the quality of this video if it's not up to our normal par weeks in review. If you're new here and you don't know what week in review is, it's where we compile all the official news statements from Cloud Imperium Games and put them into one place and kind of make them a little bit more digestible for you, as well as inserting some of my own opinions. I also stream live on Twitch every day but Monday today, so I could do this video at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time until around 10 or 11 now due to my work schedule, so make sure you hit the follow button and come check me out. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the video. So we would normally start out with a patch notes update, but instead we're going to do a monthly report update since there were no patches this week. So, starting with the monthly report for the previous month, so this would be May's monthly report, they did some work with AI ships, and they discussed how they set up the AI Javelin and the Idris. And this is old news. It already happened, it's over. But these ships used quantum travel, path to a station, requested landing, and landed there. So when you think of all of those aspects that could be used by NPCs in the future, that's really powerful as far as the amount of work they got done towards the future of Star Citizen. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Pyro had some progress. The team finished what their current tasks are for Pyro 1 and 2. The planets aren't actually finished, and they're prepping for 3 and 4 as they're waiting for additional work or tech, I guess, to be completed to finish up Pyro 1 and 2 officially. Ship art. The Hercules is making significant progress. There's also 2 unannounced ships, plus a ship series. We'll touch on this, what I think the series is, a little bit later in the video. And then progress on the Mercury is also coming along really nicely as well. Then for back-end services, there's actually kind of a lot to unpack in this very small paragraph. There's the standard work that is obvious, like Theaters of War and Invictus support, but GIM, or Global Instance Manager, is the thing that manages our connections to the server. So if you crash out, GIM is supposed to know that, hey, Mike crashed out of the server, let's save him a spot on that specific server so he's able to get back in. I don't know how you guys are experiencing things, but I am having tons of issues with what seems to be the generic instance manager. So hopefully whatever work is being done is going to help out with that. They also have refining mechanic support, so I'm very excited for that. We'll see what goes on in the future with that stuff. And then moving on, we had some gameplay updates. So most of the support was not really for Star Citizen, which is not ideal. But as we spoke about Theaters of War in yesterday's video, Answer the Call, I think Theaters of War really does have some value and will help Star Citizen and Squadron 42 in the long term. We'll have to see about how much support it gets, but for what it is now, it's already supporting Star Citizen's gameplay. Also, the much-anticipated player trading app for the Mobiglass has its first implementation, and obviously we've talked about that in recent videos, and we're very excited to see how that enhances Star Citizen and its group play features. Now, vehicle features, ships are going to fly very differently in Atmosphere coming up in the next patch. There was also a UI push that we've discussed quite a few times already, but specifically with new targeting features. So that's kind of exciting, and I think we'll touch a little bit on the new targeting in just a bit here as well. A new restricted area UI, which we're also going to talk about in a little while in the video updates section. Now, the graphics team is focused on performance this month, and basically, if you've experienced pretty spiky frame rates, whatever the work they're doing should help with that. And they're also continuing to push with the Vulkan renderer. I think a lot of people that have played 3.8, 3.7, and now are getting into 3.9 noticed a significant drop in performance in 3.9. So hopefully whatever work is going on here helps out with that. Props. Most months we skip this section, but coming to the new shop and new Babbage is a holo projector, a Muse SimPod, and a high-tech hacking chip. I think it's very clear what the hacking chip is as a functional item, but the other ones I'm not really sure, so we'll just have to wait and see what 310 brings us for the other two. So just kind of wanted to put that out there. Now moving on, we had some roadmap updates. And roadmap roundup provided actually quite a bit of information. This was kind of the dump that I was expecting for roadmaps in the near future while we had that kind of dead time for a little bit. They moved surrendering to 3.11, so that's been moved again. I think that's moved quite a few times now at this point. They've also re-added the bartender to 3.10. So this is actually bigger than it sounds. We've talked about this before, but we'll mention it again just in case you didn't know. Them adding a bartender that gets you drinks and does other things isn't that big of a feature just as the bartender, but what it is it's that first implementation of a real NPC that we can interact with properly. And that should move on to future iterations of NPCs and a more realistic gameplay experience in the future. There's also some other new cards that have been added to 3.10. Turret and gunnery improvements. So it says fixed guns will get more computer assists. I have some issues with this. I've talked about this on my live stream. If you continue to assist combat, then you continue to take the skill away, and I have concerns for that. But like many other changes that I've read from CIG, I'm going to hang back and not add too much commentary on this because I think we really need to get it in our hands first before we can give some real feedback to it. But in general, the more assists they add, the less skillful the combat is, and honestly, that's the big issue with combat in Star Citizen is they've really pulled all the skill out and have never injected anything back in with any of the changes that they've made. So a little bit disappointed with that. But here's something on the other side of the spectrum. PIP calculation improvements have been made. And this is big because it's not that the actual act of aiming is that hard. It's that the pips are flying all over the place and it's hard to track them. So if they're doing pip calculations a little bit differently and it makes the smoothing out of when an NPC ship turns or a player ship turns and you're able to follow the pip a little bit easier, that's good. And that still requires skill. So we'll have to see. There's also a spectrum response to this. And they're saying that these are not ESP changes, but there will be changes to ESP and it will be improved. And the changes, the way turrets work, I think they're going from this separation of controls to one unified X and Y axis type of situation. Again, this is another thing where it's really hard to look at what they're saying and know how it's going to feel. You got to feel it before we can really provide constructive feedback for it, right? Moving on, there was electron damage added to the 3.10 roadmap. We talked about that last week. It's not really that big of a deal, so we'll just acknowledge it and move on. Law system impounding, though. Lighter penalties for smaller crimes like landing pad stuff, and they're going to give us a countdown timer for when we're going to be fine. So you know, all right, I got a little bit of time and I can get out of here. P72, the green LTI token is now going to be added to the game, even though none of you probably actually have it because you bought it and then turned it into another ship. So way to prioritize. I don't know. For me, I think it's just an easy win for them, but it's just one of those things. It's like, why even bother? But whatever. Let me know in the comments below if you actually own this ship and plan on flying it. Then a ship that is actually really important and I think should be high on the priority list is the 100i. So the whole series is getting added to the 3.11 card, and this is a high-end starter ship if you guys aren't aware. So there's a bunch of different starter ships now, and this is just another one in that group coming from Origin, which is the high-end kind of BMW Mercedes style ship manufacturer. And then cards that have moved to polishing in 3.10, the M50, the restricted area rework, the P72 Emerald that we talked about before, aerodynamic changes for ships, and high-speed combat. A lot of those things, again, we'll have to see how they feel before really giving any comments on them. Video updates. Inside Star Citizen was pretty good. They started out with the restricted area reworks as we teased earlier, so why do we need them? Why do we need changes?
So why do we need restricted areas in the first place? Well, we need it to fit into the lore. I mean, like real cities and real airports have these restricted airspaces around them just to keep the place orderly and keep it under control so it doesn't get too busy. So we want to recreate that. And we also want to preserve that player experience of someone walking around in the city. Like, you don't want to be walking around going to shops and having some other player fly in and crash into you. so we can protect from that.
And that statement to me is fine. I know people want their freedom to do whatever they want, but it just doesn't make sense that you fly everywhere, right? So the current implementation is just too restrictive and just doesn't look great. And it really doesn't allow for any mistakes to be made. Anyone trying to land on Area 18 or Hurston in recent patches knows what I'm talking about. So how are they going to fix it?
In 3.10, we've been making some changes to the system. Part of that is introducing landing splines, which is a feature that we wanted for a long time. The cities that will benefit from the landing splines are cities where the spaceport is right inside the city. That's going to be Lorville and Area 18 will have this new feature. And the idea is that the area surrounding the spaceport is covered in a restricted area all of the time. And so we don't have these complicated restricted area meshes. And then when you request landing permission, an augmented reality path shows up in your HUD that guides you into the spaceport.
All right, this is pretty cool. I like it. It's also kind of ugly as well, but I assume it'll improve in time in terms of like what the spline looks like and how it gets generated and all that stuff. Then the part of ISC that's near and dear to my heart, the sprint report. So they start out with something that I haven't been this excited about Star Citizen in maybe years. The initial start of an inventory system. This is huge. This can apply not only to your armor and a backpack, but this can apply to those little SCU boxes, the big SCU boxes, even bigger SCU boxes. This is everything. This is the start of killing an NPC and taking the magazines off of his body and putting them onto yours. This is downing a player and maybe handcuffing him and looting him. This is taking components off of a ship and placing them somewhere into yours. This is the future of any interactions that we have with NPCs, other players, and their ships in Star Citizen. So the fact that this is becoming a priority it just shows that they are prioritizing gameplay for me. I am so excited. Drag and drop system, we'll start out with this caveat though, I guess we'll end with this caveat, it's a potential system. So this is not set in stone whatsoever. This is something they're just looking at. But the fact that they're looking at it, I'm just so excited. I can't be any more excited than I am. Moving on to something that I am a lot less excited about because it's the signed distance fields Atmo re-entry again. And it's another one of those visual aspects of Star Citizen that make it so great and honestly sell it. And it's really cool. The big thing is that it works. You could see it from a distance, and this is just amazing. So you could see ships coming down. You know when people are coming to you. It's awesome. Fire system, how it spreads. This is likely far away. It's cool. It's cool to see that there's so many things that can happen when you're on a ship, because I think a lot of our time's going to be spent on a ship. So working on things like this and figuring out how it might work is important. And then factory line, this is the store that we talked about earlier with all the little trinkets that we're going to have to find out about. There's also going to be mission givers here, so just a quick look at that. And then cargo decks, part white and part gray box phase is what it's in, but it looks pretty good so far. And they will be above all cities and along major trade routes at some Lagrange points, but I don't think they're going to be everywhere. And then lastly, the ocean shader looks nice, like always. It's going to sell some Star Citizen ships, which is cool. But one thing that they don't show here, but they talked about, was that they will react to weather conditions and things will get more choppy. There was a Star Citizen Live this week. These are the types of Star Citizen Lives that, no matter my time constraints, I will never discuss. It's just devs hanging out, drawing things that are completely irrelevant to the game, so we won't touch on that. So moving into other updates, we had a Theaters of War AMA and a recap post, so we're going to go over that. Question was, how many devs do you guys have? They have total 10 devs, 4 designers, 2 engineers, 3 artists, and 1 producer. They were very clear that this work will support Squadron 42, Star Citizen, but we've heard that before. We heard that with Star Marine, we've heard that with Arena Commander, so I'll believe it when I see it. But now, this game mode is not a game that they... this is a game mode. It's not a game, necessarily. So they have the size of a small indie studio to be able to do this. So we'll have to see what happens, right? No Man's Sky was made with 6 devs, and they moved up to 15 to finish that game. If These guys cannot get something like Theaters of War where it needs to be. It just will continue to lower my confidence on the ability to complete a game like Star Citizen. But I don't know if that's fair. Let me know in the comments below. But for me, it's a lot of the same story. But in the end, in Sean Tracy, I trust, and I'm just going to let it play out. But I got my feelings and my emotions that have been played with over the years, that it's very hard to be completely open and trusting in this situation. Another question was my exact concerns. Will you support this? This is a continuation of my comment. I mean, we've heard this story for years. They're scaling hiring, so they're going to get even more devs. And again, pointing out, 6 devs made No Man's Sky. Like, they have the animations already. They have the art assets. They have a lot of things to do, or a lot of things that have already been done in order to make a game like Theaters of War. The whole point is that the ability to have combat with multiple ships and vehicles should already be in the PU. So it really, honestly, shouldn't be that difficult to bring together them into one small space. But that's me. I'm not a game developer. I don't know what it takes to do these things. But I'm just looking at it from this, like, very ignorant space and going, let's not waste too much time on this. Let's do it, but do it right. And I don't know. I don't know. These are my thoughts jumbling because I'm just so exhausted. So how will it help the game? It should make more focused combat content. And that's really important. The ability to constantly, over and over and over again, pit 2 ships against each other. A ship versus a ground vehicle. A player versus a ground vehicle. A player versus a ship. We're going to have that data over and over and over again, and that's really, really, really important. Now, one of the issues with Star Marine, Arena Commander, and previous Theaters of War tests were performance. And the question is, will performance get better? And in short, they said no. They're attempting to get up to Star Marine levels of importance, of performance. And that is a yikes for me. Yikes. Because I play Star Marine pretty regularly since Theaters of War has been discussed, just to show and just to get people's expectations as low as possible, because it's not a good game. It's not fun. I mean, it's fun, it's weird, it's fun, but the performance is so bad that it actually ruins the experience. So if we're going for Star Marine levels of performance, no matter how fun Theaters of War is, it's going to be hindered by that. So for me, I don't understand the point of working on Theaters of War right this moment until we can get performance where we need it. So hopefully we'll get there. Now, enough negatives. I'm trying not to be as Debbie Downer as I usually am, but it's hard. It's hard with this because it's just not making sense to me. But this is something that the game really needs in the future, is something like a Downstate, and people asked about that. They're looking into it. Cool. I'm not familiar with any medical gameplay incoming other than something that was on the roadmap recently and just vanished. So they actually discussed the fact that this Downstate should help with the incoming medical gameplay. So maybe the team's working on something. So that's like a nice little thing that we got out of this Theaters of War AMA, which was really great. Lastly, what were the outcomes of the playtest? I'll touch on just 4, but there's a pretty big list. Map mode balance. So 54% of the time the defenders won, which even if you're going for 50-50, I think defenders probably should have a little bit of an advantage, since they should know their, in theory, the defenders should know the map area better than people attacking. Buccaneers need a little bit of help. They died twice as much, so any balance to Buccaneers will be done because of that. Resources requirements were learned. So resources in terms of our PCs, the client, they realized that it runs way less optimally than they thought was going to happen. So the fact that they have that information is good. The fact that that's the case is really bad. Performance is the biggest issue and priority fix. Great. Let's get it done, boys. Let's get it done. I'm really looking forward to Theaters of War. The reason for it makes total sense, and I really hope it works out. Then moving on, the G12, which was the little ground vehicle from Origin that was on sale last week, they had a Q&A this week. I'm not going to touch this, and there's for 2 reasons. First is my work schedule, and I can't just go through a million lists of information, unfortunately. And like I said, these videos are not going to be as good as they possibly could be. And second, because of this answer. They literally just make these things to make money. And it really shows that they just put this thing out there and say, we'll figure it out later. The idea of what a computer blade will do, they might know, but they're not telling us. They might know loosely, but until they try to implement it in the game, they won't really know. And second, they're selling the ship based off of that, or they're selling the ground vehicle based off of that. But they're not telling us what it actually means. So you're buying it, oh, okay, well, it has 2 computer blades, but you don't know what that means, and it seems like they don't either. So I'm really tired of these practices, to be honest, and I'll link the full Q&A below if you want to check it out, but I'm not discussing it on this video because it just bothers me. Sub-exclusive CCUs. So to me, this isn't that big of a deal. You provide additional money every month, you should get little goodies that don't really matter. And that's what this is. So when a sub-exclusive ship is available, for example, like the Carrack, you can CCU to it and get something like 12 months insurance if your initial package didn't have that much, and little goodies that come with it. Not that big of a deal to me. I think a lot of people started making a big deal about it until they realized what it actually was. And then because of a time limit, we're going to take some quick shots at the end here for other updates. And these are little things like the Galactopedia updates that come each week. Evo tested theaters war again this weekend, so hopefully there'll be some feedback based off of that. Several updates to support pages like referrals and missing ship and equipment, and lore for Geisen Incorporated. So guys, that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely leave big likes on this video, because right before this, I was debating whether I should even be doing these videos or not and just sleep. So let me know if you guys are enjoying it. Leave some comments below, and yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next week, but we'll have to see how I feel mentally and physically. Bye, everybody.